Most people who want to fly for a living have spent considerably more time thinking about how to get in than whether they should. How is concrete. Licenses, hours, type ratings, costs. That can be planned. Whether tends to get deferred. The career answers it eventually, one way or another. It's better to ask before it does. I'm James, I'm an Airbus captain and type rating examiner on the A350 and the A380. This is Airworthy, a series about what a career in commercial aviation actually involves, what it asks of you, what it gives back, and what most people don't think to consider before they're inside it. Episode 1 is about the question underneath the question. Not how to become a pilot, but whether you should. Let me be clear about what this episode isn't. It's not a list of reasons to reconsider. It's not an experienced pilot telling you the job is harder than you think. You already expect it to be hard, or you haven't thought about it seriously enough. And it isn't the kind of content designed to filter out the faint-hearted. Aviation is a genuinely extraordinary profession. The skill ceiling is real. The responsibility is real. The moments where everything comes together, the judgment, the crew, the machine, and the conditions are difficult to describe to someone who hasn't experienced them. The job earns its reputation. This episode is about making sure your reasons for wanting it are ones that will hold. In 2020, the industry ran an accidental experiment in pilot motivation. When fleets were grounded and contracts were frozen, tens of thousands of commercial pilots found themselves with something they'd rarely had before. Time, and nothing aviation related to fill it with. Some used it to pursue other things and discovered they preferred them. Some counted the days until they could get back. Some found to their own surprise that they weren't entirely sure which category they fell into. I know which category I was in, though it took longer to find out than I expected. My redundancy letter arrived while I had a pretty much perfect training record and no warning it was coming. I applied for hundreds of jobs outside of aviation and got nowhere. I spent 15 months away from flying, 7 of them working in offices and 8 of them driving lorries, trying to build something elsewhere. Every time I was doing something other than flying, I noticed the same thing. I missed the work, not the status, the uniform, but the task orientation. A clean boundary between the job ending and the rest of life beginning. The particular nature of what the role requires. When I eventually got my flying job back, the relief was real, but so was what I'd learned about myself during the gap. I wouldn't trade it. The people who came back with the clearest sense of why tended to have reached that kind of answer. Not, do I miss flying? Most pilots did, but what exactly and why? The answers varied, and not all of them were glamorous. Some missed the precision. Some missed the crew. Some missed the structure that a demanding job imposes on a life. A few, if they were honest, missed the identity more than the work itself. And that discovery, uncomfortable as it was, turned out to be the most useful thing the pause gave them. The reasons people give for wanting to fly tend to cluster in predictable ways. The love of aviation, the fascination with how it works, travel, challenge, a sense of doing something real. These are genuine. I'm not suggesting people are performing their motivations, but they're largely reasons for wanting to become a pilot. They don't say much about what it takes to remain one for 30 or 40 years. The job, once you're inside it, is something specific. It's a precision role operating within a defined system. Procedures, regulations, crew structures that exist for good reasons and don't bend to personal preference. Creativity lives in judgment and decision-making, not in how you choose to fly the aircraft. Your authority is real but shared. Responsibility is considerable and largely invisible until it isn't. The travel and the status, which feature heavily in most people's initial picture of the career, they have a half-life. They become the background of a working life rather than the content of it. None of that is a problem if the core of it suits who you actually are. A more useful question isn't whether you love aviation. Most people who reach this point do. It's whether the nature of this work, the precision, the compliance, the crew environment, the sustained performance under scrutiny maps onto how you actually function. Whether the parts of the job that don't make it into airline promotional videos are things you can work with, or things you'll spend decades working around. Experienced assessors in selection aren't primarily asking whether you can fly the aircraft. Those skills are trainable. They're asking whether they'd want to share a confined space with you for the next 8 hours, whether you'd make that environment easier or harder. It sounds informal, but really isn't. Personality fit is not something the selection process can fully assess. It's a question only you can answer, and the honest version requires a level of self-awareness that isn't always comfortable to apply. The formal dimension of this is something else. Every few months, your license is up for renewal in a simulator. Pass and you carry on. Fail and you don't fly commercially until you've addressed whatever the examiner found. Some things can't be addressed quickly. Your income may continue while you work through remedial training, but the medium term is uncertain. And if the airline decides it no longer has a place for you, which can happen through nothing more than timing and a seniority list, it stops immediately. At the medical, a Class 1 certificate is the professional pilot's permission to work. It can be withdrawn at any point. Not for anything you've done wrong, but a cardiac finding, a vision change, a mental health disclosure, conditions that no amount of professionalism or experience can prevent. You can be the most capable pilot on the fleet, receive a letter from the aviation authority that ends your career before lunch on a Tuesday. Most pilots carry loss of license insurance, a product that exists because this career can end without warning and without fault. You tend not to require that kind of cover in most professions. The fact that an entire insurance category exists for this risk tells you something that no recruitment brochure will. Then the operational reality. You are making consequential decisions while fatigued, sometimes considerably, under commercial pressure that doesn't always match what optimal performance would require, in an environment where serious error carries regulatory and potentially legal consequences.
No one said you are going to lose both engines at a lower altitude than any jet in history.
The industry has overlapping layers of protection against this. None of them eliminate the underlying exposure. If you build a career in aviation, you're building it on a foundation that requires continuous maintenance. Your family's financial security depends on you continuing to pass the checks, pass the medical, and not make a mistake that triggers an investigation. This is something every professional pilot manages. The ones who manage it best tend to be the ones who know it's there. So, the right reasons. They tend to be less visible than the wrong ones, which is part of why nobody writes them down. Start with your relationship with routine. Aviation is, in its daily reality, a highly procedural profession. The flows, the checks, the call-outs, the SOPs, these exist because standardization is how multi-crew operations stay safe, and because the most dangerous thing a pilot can do is improvise when precision was required. Some people find deep satisfaction in executing a procedure well. Others find it constraining and spend their career trying to personalize something that isn't designed to be personalized. Neither is a moral failing, but one is a better fit for this life than the other. Ask yourself how you handle being assessed. Not in an interview, in the day-to-day. Your performance in aviation is always visible to someone. On the line, in the simulator, in how you brief, in how you respond when something goes wrong. Informal assessments never stop, even when nobody is formally grading you. If sustained scrutiny makes you sharper, that's useful to know. If it makes you defensive or anxious, that's useful too. Think honestly about the schedule, not the travel. That normalizes faster than most people expect. The harder thing is what irregular hours do to a body over time. Circadian disruption from long-haul flying is not the same as staying up late. It's a 3 a.m. pickup where your system has no idea what time zone it's anchored to. The hotel room at noon with blackout curtains and the clock ticking down before the next duty period. The particular quality of fatigue at the end of a long rotation, not tiredness you can sleep off, but something slower and heavier that accumulates across a career. The research on shift work and long-term health is not encouraging, and most pilots know this without dwelling on it. Know it before you commit. The schedule cuts both ways, though. The same roster that puts you in the wrong hemisphere on a Saturday puts you at the school gate on a Tuesday, present for midweek activities that colleagues on 9-to-5 schedules miss entirely. Days off are real and can be substantial. The question isn't whether the schedule is good or bad. It's whether the shape of it suits how you want to build a life. Some people find the irregularity freeing, others find it wears on them. Both are worth understanding about yourself in advance. And then the simplest question, which turns out to be the hardest. Do you want to do this job, or do you want to be someone who does it? The distinction matters more than it sounds. The job on a Tuesday in February, on a turnaround to a city you've been to 40 times, is not the job it appears from the outside. The question is whether you want that version of it too, because that version is most of it. The career will answer the question eventually. It always does. What varies is whether the answer arrives as a surprise. The things covered in this episode, the routine, the scrutiny, the schedule, the fragility, aren't arguments against aviation. They're arguments for choosing it honestly. The pilots who last and who remain genuinely good at this over decades tend to have made peace with all of it before it arrived, not passively, deliberately, with full knowledge of what they were committing to. Most of what makes this career hard is knowable in advance. The rest of Airworthy goes deeper into each of these. Selection and what the process is actually designed to find and what it isn't. Training, what it teaches and what it leaves entirely to chance. The crew dynamic, what the career looks like when it breaks and what it looks like when it doesn't. 11 episodes, one question running through all of them. If you're at the stage of deciding whether to start this career, or you know someone who is, then why not subscribe? This series is built for that decision. See you in the next one.